we're streaming to our YouTube. Wait 30 seconds and then we're starting.
Lofty, please accept the interpretation invitation, please.
I'm looking at the number of attendees increasing. A little bit more, and then we start. Welcome, everybody. I'd like to welcome you all to the second day of our conference on restoring livelihoods of Yemenis through culture in Yemen. Yesterday, we had a very fruitful, engaging, and dense day with different sessions. We talked about urban rehabilitation and a lot of information from different partners, donors, and local implementing organizations. My name is Mohammed Al-Jabri. I'm the program and communication officer for the Cash for Work project. I will be the master of ceremony today, and sorry, Marcus, I'm hearing the French translation. If you can, I'll be the master of ceremony today.
سأكون ميسر الجلسة اليوم.
And I will. Sorry for the technical issues.
هناك بعض المشاكل التي تخص المشاكل التقنية. نحن آسفون.
Today is full of sessions and creative information about the creative sector in Yemen. We have two sessions in mind. The first will discuss how young people in Yemen can make their creative talents into a way to empower them, empower their livelihoods. And then we talk about culture and peace building. But before we start, I have some housekeeping remarks. We have interpretation available in this conference, so this session. You can choose between Arabic, English, and French.
الفرنسية، الإنجليزية أو العربية. إذا ضغطتم على الزر
and the word interpretation, and you can select what you want from there. The team will be sending out messages in the chat, and so please check them out to follow through. We have question and answer Q&A option available, so we'll be happy to answer any questions, and we'll share them with our team who will respond, and then we'll channel them to the hosts. This conference is recorded and it's being streamed to YouTube. So this is just a disclaimer for that. Before we start, I would like to ask my colleague Marcos to share with us the first video of the day. it is not a webinar without technical issues during COVID time. So
كانت لدينا بعض
just brace with us for a moment as we can fix the issues.
حلمي ان انا اعزف وانا امن وانا مرتاح باي مكان. كنت دائما ابحث عن ادخل موسيقى، بس الجانب المادي يعتبر كان اكبر عائق، انه تروح معهد ياخذ $75 بالشهر، وانت عادك طالب، معك اسره، معك حتى لو اشتغلت تصرف على اسرتك. الفن يعتبر افضل وسيله لانه يصل الى كافه المجتمع، يصل الى قلب اي انسان، لان الفن بشكل عام يخاطب الروح. ما فيش فن يدعو للحرب ولا في فن يدعو للقتال، بالعكس كله يصنع سلام. أضاف لي المشروع معرفة واسعة على مختلف المجالات الفنية اللي هي الرسم، الموسيقى، التصوير، المونتاج، جرافيكس، كل التخصصات الفنية. فحاجة كنت ناقصة لي كيف ألخص فكرتي بمشروع قابل للتنفيذ، إنه قابل للتمويل، قابل إن ألاقي فيه دعم، وكيف إن أنا أصارع على القبول مرة ومرتين 3 مرات 4 مرات، وكيف إن أنا أروج لنفسي.
يزن طبعا كان مركز على آلة الجيتار بشكل كبير، فمسك مجموعة من الطلاب وقام بتدريبهم، وأثمرت يعني جهوده بأنه طلع ثمرات عازفين بالمعهد.
فكان يزن الوحيد اللي كان يعلم جيتار، كان يعني أستاذ قوي يعني فاهم الجيتار، فدرست أنا عنده وعلمني، والآن كان عازف الحمد لله.
لقرابة 2 سنين أدرس مجان، ما أخذش ولا أي ريال من أي طالب، لأن أنا تعلمت مجان وبدرس مجان. ما يهمناش المادة بقدر ما هو يهمنا أن أنا أوصل فكرتي وأوصل رسالتي. الجانب المالي ساعدني أن أنا قد أستمر بالفن الذي أقدمه، وأعطانا دفعة معنوية، وجانب إيجابي أن أنا حصلت مقابل تعب، مقابل شغفي الذي قدمته.
The story of Yemen is very common for people to want to perform their arts only in times of peace. This is the basic need that many of young Yemenis have. The project has contributed to supporting 500 young artists and culture operators. But to give you more information about the contribution, the role UNESCO plays, before we go into sessions, I'd like to give the floor to my colleague, Ahmed Zawoush, who will give you a short presentation about the work we do. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mohammed. I hope you hear me loud and clear.
Yes, we do. Just a moment, I'm putting up your presentation.
Okay, thank you. So hello and welcome to everyone. Welcome to all the speakers attending. Welcome to all our partners from SMEP, Saran W Media, Afar, Cultural Solution. Welcome to all the great artists that are present with us today, to the UN Secretary General Special Envoy Office for Yemen as well. This is the second day of the International Conference on Yemen, Restoring Livelihood Through Culture. Yesterday, as Mohammed has mentioned, was a busy day. It was a dense day with 3 panels, many informative and interesting discussions and presentation. The conference focused yesterday on the community-led and the human-centered approach to cultural heritage protection in the context of the conflict. We discussed the value added of this new scheme that is implemented by UNESCO and the EU, the Cash for Work scheme that is implemented for the first time in World Heritage properties. And we discussed more particularly its contribution to livelihoods enhancement, to ownership from local communities over heritage management. We had also the chance to think collectively about the sustainability issues, the M&E system we need to put in place, the lessons learned and challenges. Today, we'll focus more on the second important component of this partnership, that is the support to the cultural creative industries in Yemen. This is a matter of debate. I don't think we can speak about cultural creative industries per se, but at least cultural and creative value chains. This is extremely important, and we'll be happy today to share with you the work done during the past 2 years in support of cultural value chain to boost income generation for artists, helping them better monetize their content, express themselves freely, raise awareness, and foster appreciation of heritage and culture as confidence-building measure for peace. So, as I highlighted yesterday, the project has indeed successfully engaged over 500 young artists from 4 cities, Sana'a, Shibam, Zabid, and Aden, in cash-based or stipend-based cultural project, services, program, and training workshops. We had 5 training workshops organized, 8 small grants provided to cultural associations covering several domains from dance, performing arts, cinema, poetry, graphic design. There was a production, thanks to the support of our partners, of over 460 creative online contents and 588 cultural goods and products, which allowed us to reach over 7 million viewers in Yemen and in the neighboring countries. We are currently working on the preparation of a comprehensive study on the status of the creative sector in Yemen, and we started developing a toolkit on cultural entrepreneurship. So, as I mentioned, during the past 2 years, we have been organizing a couple of consultative debates and fora, civil society consultations workshop to document the status of the creative sector and better understand the needs of the young artists and the cultural practitioners in Yemen. We had the Resiliar debate back in December. We had the Yemen Diaspora Forum. We have other consultative workshops. And actually, the data collected during the first phase and the capacity assessment we did and the mapping has revealed indeed significant management gaps within cultural organizations and cultural communities in Yemen that are related, that are of course the results of the conflict, but are also related to long-term pre-existing factors. Those gaps concern particularly strategic planning, business development, sustainable funding of projects and activities, networking gaps, and the lack of international outreach and visibility. Of primary importance is the need for cultural association and a group of artists to adopt strategic practices for programming and to develop sustainable financial management through diversified funding stream. There is a need from our assessment and from all the discussions we had to intensify cultural management courses that adapt the precepts of business management to the cultural sector during the conflict in order to facilitate the economic resilience of the arts and the local communities. And there is a need also to further connect the Yemeni artists with their peers from the diaspora and from the region. So as you're certainly aware of, the outbreak of the war has further exacerbated the pervasive feelings of social alienation that were caused by chronic unemployment prior to the conflict. Since the start of the conflict 7 years ago, the vibrancy of the cultural life in Yemen has been somehow suspended, and in some parts of the country, given way to radical sectarian narratives that erode the pluralistic cultural fabric needed to unify society. Commentators observe that the cultural void caused by the war has produced a form of despair and disillusionment among young people and young artists, which incurs a secondary political risk, such as increased likelihood of extreme violence. As many of you may be aware, the year 2021 is the UN International Year of the Creative Economy for Sustainable Development. And as the only UN organization with a mandate of culture, it's really UNESCO's role to highlight and amplify culture's contribution to the global creative economy throughout 2021. The COVID-19 pandemic highlighted the importance of the status of the artist and the system of protection of artists and cultural professionals. And as Yemen faces crisis and the pandemic, the potential of the culture sector to drive a human-centric and inclusive development has never been more relevant. UNESCO estimates that the cultural creative industries generate around $2.2 billion in revenue a year, creating 30 million jobs worldwide. So culture creative industry should not be seen as a luxury, but we must acknowledge the beneficial impact on economic growth and job creation, particularly for youth. We know that the cultural creative industries have the highest level of employment for youth in the MENA region, over 70% in the informal sector, and particularly for youth aged 18-29. UNESCO is the custodian of the 2005 Convention on the Protection and Promotion of the Diversity of Cultural Expression, which has not been ratified yet by Yemen. But however, we have a very good sign of progress, and we have learned and heard during the past week that we are going towards a potential ratification, this is great news because this will open up new opportunities of funding and technical assistance to our partner. As many of you are aware, this is an internationally binding international instrument that has 146 parties, which includes 145 member states of UNESCO and the European Union. The convention establishes the right to adopt policies and measures to support the emergence of dynamic and strong cultural scene in Yemen. It recognizes the rights of parties to take measures to promote and protect the diversity of cultural expression, to impose obligation at both domestic and international levels on member states. It also provides a plan of action that ensures artists, cultural professionals and practitioners, as well as citizens, have the capacity to create, produce, disseminate, and enjoy a broad range of cultural goods, services, and activities. The guiding principle, I'm sure you are aware of them, so I will not maybe spend too much time on this. I would like to move to next slide, Mohammed, for the interest of time, to remember the roadmap that we have collectively put in place with our partners. As I mentioned, UNESCO project and UNESCO EU project recognize the value of youth access to culture and creative industries and value chain. And through the small grants program to cultural CSO, through the training on cultural entrepreneurship, the consultative network, the project approaches culture as an important and complementary approach to heritage preservation, because this is what would make urban rehabilitation more sustainable, and this is what would empower local communities living within and around those historical sites. This is what can make cities a place where people can live together, connect, express themselves freely, generate income, gain revenue, and engage in dialogue. So this is a fertile ground to invest in. It's a promising niche, even in the case of Yemen, that needs to be improved. And Yemeni youth have amazing talents, ideas, creativities, imagination that we should all collectively support to turn into livelihood. The project places emphasis on youth-led production of goods, services, contents, activities of cultural or artistic and/or heritage nature, whose origin lies in human creativity of the Yemeni people, whether past or present. The project also underscores the necessary functions of each aspect of cultural value chain that allows goods, services, and activities to reach a public and also a market. We support those value chains that have their origin in individual creativity, skills, talent, which have a potential for job and wealth creation. So we'll have a snapshot today. You have here, I think, a snapshot about what has been done, what is coming next. Of course, we'll continue the grants program. We'll be investing also a lot in additional capacity building. We are hoping to further develop the study on CCI and also to come up with a consolidated toolkit with our partners. And we are happy to cooperate with so many partners, and we have a good exchange platform with the Goethe Institute, the British Council, and others as well. So I hope you will enjoy the 2 sessions we have today. I thank you very much, and I really look forward to our conversation. And I'm happy to give the floor to Mrs. Nicole McNally, who is the Training and Knowledge Coordinator at Cultural Solution Europe. And I would like to thank Nicole and all her team very much for the great support provided to us for the organization of this conference. Nicole, back to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ahmed. It's a pleasure to be here. Welcome, everyone. Salam alaikum. Welcome to everyone who's joining us from wherever you are. As Ahmed mentioned, my name is Nicole. I'm Cultural Solutions Training and Know-How Sharing Coordinator. I'm joining you today from The Hague in the Netherlands. I'm delighted to be here kicking off the first thematic session on the second day of the conference on the theme of restoring livelihoods through culture in Yemen. And I encourage you to add comments and questions in the Q&A function, and also to connect with us on social media using the hashtag #work4heritage, and that's 4 as the number 4, work4heritage. And so in this session, we're focusing on the untapped potential of the creative industries to turn Yemeni ideas, talent, and creativity into livelihoods. UNESCO and the European Union, in partnership with implementing partner, the Small and Micro Enterprise Promotion Service, SMEPS, you'll be hearing that acronym today in our session, have supported 8 Yemeni cultural civil sector organizations through a small grants program. The program aims to develop their cultural programming and income generation capacities to help improve the livelihoods of young artists and cultural professionals, with a view on reinforcing the resilience of the creative sector in Yemen. We have a fantastic panel lined up for you today. I have had a sneak preview into what they will share. I'm already inspired, and we've seen some amazing creative interventions across yesterday, and I know we have some great creative interventions coming up soon. So I'm delighted to introduce our panel. We start today with a presentation from Safia Al-Jabri, Executive Director of SMEPS Yemen. She'll talk through some of the outcomes of the program for the 8 civil society organizations and creative practitioners. We then hear from Rima Mismar, Executive Director of the Arab Fund for Arts and Culture in Lebanon. She'll share with us her lessons learned about the potential of the creative industries in the recovery in the aftermath of the Beirut blast tragedy, drawing parallels between the fund's work in providing mentorship and training for young artists across the region and in Yemen. We then benefit from the experience of Entisar Al-Dais from Sana'a. Entisar is one of the filmmakers who's benefited from a grant and an extensive film training program led by Young World Together. And you can see Entisar's short documentary film Silver alongside those of 11 of her peers from across Yemen. I encourage you to take a look. They're wonderful. These films were introduced yesterday afternoon, and they're now available for everyone to view on demand via the UNESCO event page. So please don't miss out. You can see them for the next week. Please check them out. And last but not least, our final presentation will be from Shibam Jamal, CEO of Basement Cultural Foundation. Basement Cultural Foundation are one of the organizations supported by SMEPS, and Shibam will share her insights into the impact of the program, as well as introducing some ongoing challenges in the Yemeni cultural sector context and setting out some directions of travel for the future development of the creative sector. But before we kick off, this is a small experiment. I would like to issue a creative challenge to the audience. Later in our discussion, I'd like to raise the question of what the future could look like in the Yemeni creative sector in 10, 20, 30 years' time, what the sector could look like if we really harness its potential. And so to you, our dear audience, this is the opportunity to share your thoughts. As well as listening to our panelists, I encourage you to share your own vision of what the future of the creative sector in Yemen will look like if we harness the potential of the creative industries and Yemen's young people and creative talent. What is your dream? Please share your thoughts in the question and answer or on Twitter using the hashtag #work4heritage. My colleagues will help me drawing out the main themes, and I hope we can bring this back into the discussion later. I am going to stop talking very soon. So we'll hear from each panelist one by one today, and then we're going to move into a panel discussion. So let's kick off. So to the panelists, Safia Al-Jabri, Executive Director of SMEPS. Safia has a background in private sector development, livelihoods, humanitarian work, and specifically in conflict and fragile settings. She has also worked with the technical teams in charge of Yemen's accession to the World Trade Organization. Today, Safia will introduce the outcomes of the cooperation with UNESCO and consider the potential for the future creative industries. Safia, over to you.
Hi, Nicole. Thank you so much. I will share my screen. If you can just give me a second to do that. And please let me know if it's showing and if my voice is clear.
We can hear you well, and now we can see your screen. Thank you.
Thank you. So thank you again for the invitation to be part of this event and to present the role of SMEPS in the UNESCO's program. SMEPS was involved in the creative industries component, again, which Ahmed has already mentioned before, which was implemented by 8 CSOs in Zabid, Sana'a, Aden, and Hadramaut. Yesterday, we saw a couple of the CSO presenting, and today we have one also who will be presenting, Shibam from the Basement Cultural Foundation, which is amazing, and they'll get to give a bit even deeper outcomes of the program itself. And the way the component was implemented was to strengthen the youth participation and involvement in the creative industries, and through providing them with livelihood support in the form of cash for work and skills, and through using a sustainable approach of building the capacities of these CSOs working in the sector. And for a long time, the creative industries have really not been given that importance. And I remember as recent as 2015, youth in the creative industries were going to the field based on their passion, not really graduating from these sectors. And not many universities and institutes have dedicated curriculums on art, craft, music, fashion, and so on. And the dynamics of the conflict and the technology has really shed light to these industries. And now many youth are dependent on their talents for livelihoods. And this project, I think, came at the right time to seize these opportunities and to strengthen the sector and to support youth to have better livelihoods opportunities by doing what they like and by being passionate in these industries. So the PowerPoint that I've really prepared speaks about this. I'll try to jump, it's a bit long, so I'll try to jump a bit quickly in some of the achievements for the CSOs because they will get to speak about these as well. So the goals again of the project was basically to diversify the livelihoods and job opportunities for urban youth, build the capacity of these national institutions for sustainability through empowering the CSOs, human capital investments by building the capacities of youth in these sectors for resilience, recovery and peace building, and also to provide a wider understanding of the key role of Yemen's diverse culture and how it can pay as a valuable contributor for the economic growth, specifically in sectors like the tourism sector post-conflict. SMEP's role and support in this industry. SMEPS is a technical support agency and has done a lot in terms of grants management through supporting the private sector and SMEs in terms of matching grant schemes and so on. And the way we supported the CSOs was through grants management by building their capacity in grants management and how to deal with such kind of like systems, technical assistance, supervision, monitoring and evaluation. We did communication, advocacy and awareness in partnership with these CSOs, and again building the capacities of the CSOs in institutional strengthening on internal procedures such as finance, procurement, M&E, and communication and advocacy. We also were able to provide entrepreneurship curriculum to these CSOs, and the curriculum that we gave these CSOs was My First Business, which was also developed by SMEPS and ILO, because one of our main mandates as SMEPS is entrepreneurship, and we've been working on this since 2005. The key outcomes of this program, as I mentioned, is supporting these 8 CSOs who in turn supported 221 young artists and cultural professionals. 62% of them are women. And these were in the fields of art, storytelling, poetry, filmmaking, manuscripts, handicrafts, and architecture. The key outcomes was that these small grants dispersed to the CSOs amounted to $178,000 US. 250 beneficiaries received incomes or wages, of which again 55% are women. So you can see women are more lenient to the culture and heritage sectors. And the total stipend dispersed for these young men and women was around $65,000. Within the 4 months period of the support, 5,450 working days were created. And the type of support provided for the youth by the CSOs included capacity building, mentorship, events, and promotional activities. The artworks and products that were produced and promoted by these CSOs included 460 contents documented, including poems, radio episodes, cultural heritage films, manuscripts that were saved and documented, and architectural buildings that were documented as well. In addition, we had 588 products that were produced, including artworks, handicrafts, and heritage products that were produced for sale as well. This is a really beautiful picture of one of the young artists from Basement Cultural Foundation. And as you can see, she linked her artistic talent to culture. You can see next to her, there is a dried pumpkin that has been beautifully embedded with art and bulbs. Basically, these dried pumpkins were used prior to kind of like turn milk, fresh milk to yogurt and laban and so on. This is also another beautiful photo of one of the artists from the Basement Cultural Foundation. Now, some of the CSOs that we supported included the Youth of the World Together, who spoke yesterday, and they were able to train 12 young men and women in terms of production of heritage films, producing 12 heritage films. I'll just rush through these a bit because of the time as well. We also supported Manuscript Preservation Association, who trained 8 men in terms of documenting, indexing and arranging of manuscripts. 332 manuscripts were documented and rehabilitated or saved. And this is a beautiful photo as well from one of those CSOs. Then we have Wujuh Foundation for Media and Development, who trained 40 poets, 15 women and 25 men. 320 working days were created, and we had an event where poems and poets were able to share their stories and poets, and 10 of them were awarded. We also have Aden again Cultural Foundation, which is basically in architecture sector, and they go around to document architectural buildings in Aden. So 10 architects were trained, 6 women and 4 men, and we had 48 architectural buildings documented. Again, this is a beautiful photo. We couldn't help but share these in the presentation. It's also beautiful, 2 beautiful artworks from young artists, again, from the Basement Cultural Foundation. Then we have the Women and Child Development Association, which is dedicated to training women in the handicraft sector. So 70 girls and women were trained, of which 73 of them were supported with cash for work opportunities. 360 handicrafts were produced, and an exhibition was arranged where these handicrafts, some of them were sold and promoted as well. Then we have the Memes Art Initiative, which is basically oriented in the crafts. So 21 craftsmen and women were trained, 14 women and 7 men, which is quite impressive to see women in this sector as well. And 200 heritage products were produced. And this is one of the beautiful photos as well of this CSO. And then we have the Yemeni House of Music, which trained 30 artists in different scenario writing, acting, and music production. 28 radio episodes were produced and broadcasted in 10 radio stations. And finally, we have the Basement Cultural Foundation, which trained 30 artists. They did a good gender balance, so 15 women and 15 men. And 28 sales-oriented artworks were produced. But I think one of the things that Basement Cultural Foundation did that's really impressive was establishing a website to promote the artworks that can really provide a good platform of linking these CSOs and young artists to the local and international markets as well. This is a final photo for the presentation, a beautiful one as well, made by a young artist from the Basement Cultural Foundation as well. Some of the recommendations that we have in terms of moving forward with the culture and with the creative industry basically is the way that UNESCO supported SFD and SMEPs, and the way SMEPs did the grants management from the CSOs really built the capacities of national institutions working in these sectors. And this is a sustainable approach, which can provide a better platform for more youth to be supported in these industries. I also spoke earlier on having curriculums and human capital investment in these sectors, so we can have youth going towards these sectors for jobs, having social enterprises created from these sectors rather than just having it as a talent. And so this has a potential for growth, specifically in the tourism industry, in the social enterprises, and so on. And finally, the linkages between local enterprises, the CSOs, the private sector, and other market players. So really following a systemic approach to supporting the creative industries, bringing in market players like the chambers of commerce, like the Ministry of Industry and Trade, to protect the intellectual property rights of these artisans is quite important. And finally, I think one of the things that we noticed throughout implementation of this program was advocacy, and awareness. Still, there is not so much importance being given with the creative industry, and we need to have much more communication for development approaches towards advocating for this sector, because it is a growing economy, it's a booming economy, and we do want youth and the CSOs and national institutions working in this sector to really invest in terms of advocacy and raising awareness and building better platforms for recovery, for peace buildings, and for social enterprises in general. Finally, I have a beautiful last photo of also one of the young artists who created this, child's book, which is quite impressive as well. Thank you. I think I'm done with the presentation, and over to you, Nicole.
Thank you so much. I think you had and have done a tremendous task. It was a big ask for you to have that overview. Thank you so much. And thank you also for those recommendations. I'm sure we'll come back to those in the discussion as well. I am very, very, very happy to welcome now Rima Mismar, Executive Director of the Arab Fund for Arts and Culture in Lebanon. Rima has been Executive Director of the Arab Fund for Arts and Culture since 2016. She has a background as a film critic, has served on many film selection juries, has written for regional media, has worked in television and documentary filmmaking. She'll share her insights into tapping into the potential of the creative industries for recovery and growth, drawing on experiences in both the Arab region and Yemen more specifically. So Rima, over to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Nicole, and everyone for the amazing efforts in putting this together. I'm very pleased to be amongst my colleagues in discussing the importance of supporting cultural and creative industries and cultural work at large. I'm starting with the example of Lebanon as a case study, to move later on how it actually also reflects on the whole of the Arab region. Last year, the very existence of the dynamic artistic and cultural scene in Lebanon has been fatally threatened by the country's unfolding morbid economic collapse, restrictions on everyday financial transactions, and uncontrolled inflation. The COVID-19 pandemic has compounded and amplified further the calamitous situation. The aftermath of the August 4th catastrophe has struck an astounding, unprecedented blow to civilian life as well as to the arts and culture sector. The damages and losses to the cultural scene and the cultural creative industries are estimated in the hundreds of millions of dollars. Additionally, the high concentration of heritage assets and cultural creative industries in the area affected by the explosion had yielded scary numbers in terms of damages and losses that affected 713 out of 850 cultural creative industries, 64 out of 88 cultural spaces and venues, 650 out of 755 heritage buildings, 9 out of 16 theaters and cinemas, and 24 out of 25 libraries, 6 out of 80 museums, and 120 artisan and craft shops. The arts and culture sector's precariousness was further thus magnified, and the survival and sustainability of the once vibrant creative field is now in a critical condition for both arts and culture organizations as well as for individual artists and cultural workers. In light of this, there was and still is a real fear that the arts and culture sector will not be able to survive these conditions, leading to loss of livelihood for artists and culture practitioners, weakening of the vital scene, and eventually migration of these artists. With the general absence of public funding, policies, incentives, support, and with the majority of arts and culture organizations surviving on grants earmarked for activities, there was a need for a support scheme to help organizations and creative industries facing multifaceted challenges, like the high risk of shutting down given their inability to survive the period of absence of public programs due to earmarked funding, the hurdles to receive or access new non-restricted funds, and the necessity to reimagine their roles and reinvent their operations in a way that allows them to survive and stay relevant. The Lebanon Solidarity Fund, launched by AFAC in partnership with Culture Resource, extended support to 66 arts and cultural organizations, creative businesses, spaces, and venues, in addition to support to 208 individual artists, technicians, and cultural workers who were affected by the blast. The importance of this support scheme, especially that extended to institutions, lies not only in its ability to respond quickly to the catastrophe, but also in its flexibility, diversity, and ability to accommodate the different needs of the supported entities, from general support to programmatic support to fixing damages and reimagining the space. The fund further encouraged the different entities to think beyond the current moment of crisis by looking inwards, that is, reflecting on their mandate, mission, vision, operations. Secondly, solicit support from consultants to rethink their business models and operations in ways that could respond to the current situation. And thirdly, explore collaborative options with peer institutions to maximize the use of space, share costs, and benefit from combined audiences and cross-disciplinary programming. The case of the Lebanon Solidarity Fund, although specific to the Lebanese context, still widely applies to the rest of the Arab region, where conflict, crises, and the political situation pose restrictions on the cultural sector and hinders its development and progress. In such a context, it is crucial that existing as well as new support schemes provide the conditions for growth of the cultural and creative industries. Some of these conditions that allow the growth of this sector, and some of which we are drawing as way of learnings from the Lebanon Solidarity Fund, as well as other programs at AFAC that supports arts and cultural organizations. Some of these conditions are the following. Number one, building strong organizations through long-term core support. Long-term support and investment are necessary to have an impact on the sector at large, to strategically address the vulnerability of the sector, to build collaborations, and to have a trickle-down effect. The support system, secondly, the support system must serve the cultural scene and not the other way around. Maintaining a non-exploitative model of support is key. More open and flexible support fosters more creativity and diversity. While weathering crisis certainly requires flexibility, it must not turn into reactivity. That's why cultural production cannot simply reproduce the humanitarian model of relief response to crisis, because then it remains mired in the shifting quicksand of current affairs. Artists and organizations should in fact not be expected to respond to crisis in the same way, or even to produce something immediately recognizable as a response. There must be room for different ways of reacting without the presupposition that art is being made with the express purpose of acting as a counterpoint to official narratives. To see it as such means that it can only be read against or in conjunction with political history, which in turn denies it the possibility to be understood on its own terms as an expression of complex moral, emotional, personal, and technical ambition, and denies artists too the agency of being creative actors rather than just political subjects. The capacity building opportunities that are informed are important when they are informed by the reality on the ground, taking into consideration the specificity of the context and the needs, and going beyond the specific project to nurture the individuals and the organizations to be able to carry out future endeavors. And finally, providing the space and resources for the actors and organizations in the field to experiment, reflect, and reinvent themselves. Prior to the Lebanon Solidarity Fund, we have been investing in arts and culture organizations through the Arts and Culture Entrepreneurship Program. The latter came as a response to how AFAC could support organizations beyond their activities, as the major challenge for many emerging and to some extent established arts and cultural institutions is the ability to grow and remain viable. This is due to contextual and institutional factors, such as lack of public funding and independent resources, limited knowledge about alternative sources of income, weak institutional structures, weak management and leadership competences. The program, currently running in its third cycle, aims to inspire and strengthen small and medium-sized institutions in their quest to identify innovative ways to remain relevant and to be sustainable. Through 3 extensive workshops, the participants learn about the global context of funding, how to approach corporates and individual givers, practices of leadership, design thinking, business models, communication and storytelling, creating public value and measuring impact, learning from peers with a focus on the global South, in addition to the tailored mentorship that tackles financial management, risk, and crisis management. Within
Sorry
the program,
to interrupt, I'm going to have to ask you to wrap up, sorry.
This is it, the last paragraph. Within this program, we have the pleasure of welcoming 2 young Yemeni entities, Kumra and Rumuz. Kumra participated in the 2019-2020 cycle alongside 7 other institutions from Algeria, Lebanon, Libya, Tunisia, and Egypt. They attended the 3 workshops and worked one-on-one in the areas of business model, budgeting, and storytelling. As a result of their learnings, they are now in the process of reconfiguring Kumra as 2 connected entities, the Kumra Academy and the Kumra Films. The first provides training and mentoring to young Yemeni filmmakers, while the latter engages with film production. Rumuz are part of the current cycle of the program alongside other 7 institutions from across the Arab region, and now are working on a baseline study to determine their organizational and programmatic priorities. I have to stop here. I have other examples of capacity building, but probably in the Q&A. Thank you so much.
I really thank you so much, Rima. I really hope we'll get around to these also in the Q&A. Thank you so much. That was a very powerful intervention, especially around the space to create content that goes beyond the current conflict or current crisis situations, to have that freedom of expression to, that's a really powerful message to take back. Thank you so much. I would encourage the audience to not forget that I have Twitter on another screen. We are also monitoring the Q&A. Please do share your perspectives. We are listening and we would love to hear what your vision is. So please use Q&A and Twitter to share this. I'm now delighted to bring on Entisar Al-Dais, a filmmaker from Sana'a. Entisar, alongside 11 of her peers from across Yemen, took part in the Film Academy program led by Young World Together. As I mentioned, you can also check out her film via the event page. She'll share more about her personal experience of the program and her thoughts on the future development of the film and creative sector in Yemen. So Entisar, it is over to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, my dear friends, Assalamu alaikum. And thank you for having me today to share with you my experience with the Yemeni Film Victory Program. My name is Entisar Al-Dais and I am a filmmaker. Actually, I wanted to be a filmmaker since I was a student at school. I used to watch movies all the time on the TV. And because of that, I entered the media college. But I didn't get the information that I want to just qualify me to be a filmmaker. And after I graduated from college, I couldn't make any short films because I didn't gain enough practical skills in my education. And I couldn't find any support or mentors that I could depend on. Moreover, due to the difficult situation in Yemen that we passed through since 2015, I worked in many jobs that didn't relate to filmmaking or to my studies. However, I kept writing ideas for short films to do them in the future. And I keep searching for any opportunities which can give me all the knowledge that I need in my career as a young woman filmmaker. Therefore, I consider myself as a lucky person to be accepted into the YWT program that was held in 2021 and to be one of the 12 trainees. As a trainee, I have learned many new techniques and methods that widen my gaze and lighten my way. Moreover, I got a lot of information that I have not known before in books or in college lectures, such as new editing techniques, storytelling, modern theories in filmmaking, how to do an effective interview, and many useful tools and means. And one of the good things of this program is we met professional instructors who guide us, and they were generous with sharing with us their experience. Not only this, but they also were as a friends for us and for our country. They gave us all the information that we need to do for the final project and to progress our career as a filmmakers. In addition, as you know, we were 12 trainees from different provinces of Yemen, so each city has its own culture and tradition. When we talked about our ideas for film, we were very surprised by the heritage that each province has, such as clothes, dishes, weddings, traditions, and others. I was embarrassed by the culture diversity inside my country that I have known or seen them before. After this program, I'm sure that everyone will be able to implement her or his film by applying what we have learned. In addition, I think it will be changing from just a hobby to a career. Also, we will be the hope for a flourishing filmmaking industry in Yemen. We still need good education for filmmakers and creatives from professionals with international experience. And to professionalize, we should have a film support organization to give financial support to our creative projects and to assist with training. I want to say we have many young Yemenis who are very clever and creative, who want to show the beautiful side of our country to the world, not only the negative side that the world knows us because of the war. So we ask the UNESCO and the other organizations to stay supportive for us. In the end, I want to give a big thank for UNESCO, European Union, YWT, New York Film Academy, SIMS, and everyone who contributed to providing this opportunity for us. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Entisar. It's been fantastic to hear your experience, and I hear a lot of your experience echoed in what Sophia introduced about the need for more investment in education to create this movement towards sustainable careers. So I'm sure we'll pick up on that also in the discussion. I am last but not least, I'm very pleased to welcome Shama Jamal from Basement Cultural Foundation in Sana'a. Basement is a not-for-profit organization that creates space for young creatives and promotes the role of young artists in raising the voice of human rights and societal issues and stimulating cultural and knowledge exchange between them by creating a safe space for participation and communication with the public. As we've heard, Basement participated in SMEP's institutional capacity building program and delivered Medja, a project which provided mentorship and training on topics related to artwork development and promotion for 30 artists. So Shaima, I'm delighted to welcome you to the stage and ask you to share your screen. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Nicole. First of all, thank you, Nicole. Thank you all for having me in this interested session. My name is Shibam Jaman. I'm the Executive Director of Basement Cultural Foundation, and I'm here today to share Basement perspective related to the cultural sector and present or introduce some of Basement work. Basement is a non-profit cultural organization based in Sana'a. It established in 2009. It aims to create artistic space for youth, provide youth with opportunities to support their product to be introduced to the Yemeni society. Basement believe in the role of interactional platform that reduce the boundaries of artists, youth, and audience. And recently, Basement is working during a very sensitive and complicated context. We can describe this context like there is no capital investment in the art program in Yemen. Well-established organizations closed like Said in Taiz and also Al-Afif in Sana'a. Neglection of the cultural sector and its role in the development process. There are no clear cultural policies in the country. For example, we only have 2 fine art colleges and we don't have any artistic or cultural activities in school, in public school. There is absence of the cultural management and qualification training. Also, the artist had the chance to connect to the outer world. The internet of Yemen is still not helping them to reach the full experience of online learning. Unfortunately, the war has added a lot of difficulties and obstacles that make the cultural sector very vulnerable. So when it comes to the internal post-war context, I can say that there is a lack of finance and support in the local cultural field, and also most of the cultural organization and individuals start to change their field related to the artistic field as the priority goes to the human aid program. Despite that, there is a positive side of the war on the cultural scene. For example, the suffering and the limited opportunities for the youth influence them to produce more art that reflect their feeling and emotions. And also, there are increasing number of people who start to be engaged and involved in the cultural activities. So, Basement seeks to focus on some strategic goals to deal with these both contexts. For example, involvement artists of both gender in Cash for Work program to help them to rely more on their artwork as a source of income. Also, providing the logistic and the financial needs for the artist, thematize arts in the advocating UN sustainable goals, focus more on arts for arts projects to support alternative cultural and artistic scene. Also, there is a documentation of tangible and intangible heritage, active participation of women in cultural sector, and advocating of arts issue to the cultural donors and attempt to pave their productions process. So, I would like here to spotlight light on a project that funded by UNESCO, implemented by Basement and funded by UNESCO. This project is a relevant response to the current context and model of how the donors should approach when it comes to the Yemeni context. The project is a MIJDAF. The project aims to promote creative expression and raise the capacities of artists in managing art projects by offering mentorship and training on topics related to the cultural management and promotion, and highlights contemporary art and heritage as the 2 compatible elements that can be promoted. So, talking about the impact, I'm really happy here to talk about or share about some of the project's impact. There is increasing of the awareness of people toward Yemeni heritage, increasing artists' percentage of sale, as we have 30% of the artists who sold their artwork after the project ended. Also, there's artists applied for a cultural grant, and hopefully we have 5 artists succeed to get the fund. Also, artists start using a different channel of promotion, and artists arrange exhibition and produce more artwork. Portfolio is now more known among the Yemeni artists. and artists appeared in the media publicity after the project was in the final stage. Talking about the recommendation as based on basement experience, we think this intervention may be helpful for the cultural sector on both long and short term. 1. Concentrate on developing infrastructure of cultural sector via supporting cultural organization, establishing cultural organization via training and supporting their fundamental financial and administrative structure, supporting artists with their art project and production, concentrating on art for the society, and using art as a medium to raise the awareness of society on particular issue. Finally, the existence of many cultural initiatives indicate the popular tendencies toward culture and art. So it's important to support the cultural grassroots by building the capacities of this initiative. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Shaima. I really appreciate that overview. And I know we already have some questions. So I would now like to ask my panelists and also to the audience, please do share any more questions you have in the question and answer feature. My first question is from Greta. Great to see you here, Greta. And this is to Rima. So Rima, are you here? Yes, I can see you. Sorry, my screen there, everyone's in different places. So Greta asked that she mentioned that it's great as a reminder from you about the need to support culture through flexible long-term core support. Perhaps you could expand on how to do that in fragile contexts where it may be more difficult to conceive long-term partnerships given that situations can rapidly change. So if you could answer that, thank you.
Thank you so much. I think that it's some sort of the chicken and egg situation. Most of the arts and cultural organizations do not actually have the luxury to plan ahead of time and to think of programming for the next year or 6 months or 2 years because of the fact that they are all the time running after the grants in order to support certain activities. And in a situation where you have conflict and you have crisis, and like what happened last year in Lebanon, it became very obvious that, okay, so what if the environment is restrictive to activities, or like in the case of the COVID-19, which is a global issue right now. So if we are not able to present public programs and activities, does that mean that as institutions, we would just die and not have the chance to actually readapt? So the whole idea of long-term funding is, and this definitely depends on, I would say, the absorption capacity. So it's not a question of just throwing money, and that might change the mandate and the face of organizations that otherwise would have operated within smaller budgets, but rather to be very conscious about this point and to give them the tools, the time, and the luxury to be able to think without having to conduct activities in order to be able to be supported. So I think it's a combination between being conscious about the context, its specificity, the absorption capacity of the organizations or the institutions or the collectives. And once you give this leeway for them to actually start thinking of what they can do over a year or two, this can happen even within the most conflicted context, I would say.
Thank you so much. And Greta, I hope that answered or give you some insights. We now have a question which I think might be, okay, Ahmed is answering this. So this is more a UNESCO team perspective, I think. So I wonder if, again, I invite anyone who's here to ask any questions. We have around 5 minutes more. I have a question. My big question comes back to what I asked the audience earlier, which is really, what does the culture sector in Yemen look like in 10, 20, 30 years time? What's the vision? We had a comment from Abdullah, that said that despite the challenges Yemen is living through, what we see today is a sign for a thriving and blooming country that will be a hub for the whole region in cultural heritage once the war is over. And I wonder to my panelists, do you have, would anybody like to come in with your own vision of what do you think the future might look like for a creative sector if we really harness its full potential? So I can invite people, or for example, Entisar, as a creative yourself, would you like to come in? Shaima, Safia, we haven't heard from you yet in the discussion. Entisar?
Okay.
Oh, sorry. Sorry, the typical Zoom panel, everyone's coming. Entisar, we'll start with you, and Safia, I'll come to you next. Thank you very much.
Okay, I'll answer this question with Arabic. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. بلادنا اليمن تعتبر من البلاد القديمة اللي تاريخها من أقدم تاريخ ومن أندر التاريخ، يعني مستحيل إنه تكون بلاد متوفر فيها كل هذه الأشياء ما تكونش بعد 20 سنة ولا 10 سنين أكبر حضارة تنافس الحضارات العالمية حتى الحضارة المصرية الآن. فالمفترض إنه علشان نحقق هذا الهدف إيش لازم نسوي؟ إنه إحنا نستغل الشباب اللي يحبوا تراثهم، اللي دائما يحاولوا يقدموا شيء جميل للعالم عن التراث، إنه إحنا نستثمر هذول الشباب علشان حتى من خلال برنامج إنه الكاش فور وورك، إنه ممكن أنت تقدر تخلق من هذول الشباب مجتمع راقي بيحاول إنه يطور بلاده، بيحاول إنه يقدم رؤية واضحة عن بلاده، كمان إنه بيحاول يبني بحيث إنه بعد 10 سنوات، بعد 5 سنوات، بعد 20 سنة تكون تحققت أهدافه، مش بس إنه يجلس يبحث عن لقمة العيش. لما الآن نشوف شباب إنه يشتوا يقدموا حاجة لبلادهم، يشتوا يصنعوا فيلم، يشتوا يكتبوا قصة، يشتوا يرسموا، يفضل إنه يروح يدور الأعمال اللي توفر له الدخل أحسن ما يتطوع في هذه الأشياء أو يقدم لهذه الأشياء، لأنه مش قادر أصلاً إنه يوفر سبل العيش إلا من خلال هذه. أنت لو كأورجانيزيشن ولا منظمات عملت إنك تستثمر هذا بعد 20 سنة أو بعد 5 سنوات بالكثير اليمن بتتغير وبتصبح من أقوى الدول من ناحية الإعلام، الثقافة، الانترتينمنت، حتى الاقتصاد.
Thank you so much. Sorry, I was waiting for the translation to finish. Thank you so much. I apologize to anyone who's had any issues with the translation, the interpretation. I can now hear. Sorry, I can now hear a translation channel. There we go. I think we're ready. Safia, I wonder. I see you. Can I bring you in? Maybe you can also respond to Entisar. We have around 2 minutes left. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you, Nicole, for posing that really important question. I think youth in Yemen right now look for alternative solutions to jobs and to becoming entrepreneurs. And most of them, instead of looking at the creative industries as part of a talent or passion, are looking at this industry now as part of an income generation and a livelihood source. We've seen really good youth opening social enterprises in filmmaking, in photography and so on. And a couple of months ago, we had 2 young women who were taken to Dubai to have a fashion kind of like global fashion event. And it was the first time we saw something like this coming from Yemeni youth, and it made us really proud to see these women representing Yemen at such a platform. So I think, following, like I said before, the creative industries needs a systemic approach. So it needs a systemic approach in bringing in market players who can be able to really build the capacity of this industry. And this includes bringing in the private sector, bringing in linking local artists. We had recently a call from one of the young entrepreneurs in the US asking to be linked to local artisans in Yemen because she wanted to go to a fashion industry, bringing in Yemeni culture to the fashion itself. And we are under discussions with getting this woman, linked to some of the artisans in Yemen. So I think it's brilliant, and there is so much to be done. And I do think UNESCO is in the right path, and it's the right time for these kinds of support in the country. So I can see the sector booming in the coming years if the right approaches and the right supports is being provided.
That's a really inspirational response. Thank you, and congratulations to those female creative practitioners. That's really amazing. I hope they're having a fantastic time. I wonder, so just to conclude, we are running out of time. I'm sorry, Ahmed, Mohammed. Shaima, is there anything you'd also like to add? And then we've heard from our whole panel, and then we have to move on. I'm so sorry. Shaima?
Yes. I need to spotlight on the woman participation when it comes to the art field. So, for example, women, as we know, are considered to be a vulnerable group in the Yemeni society, and there is a discrimination of gender roles in all fields of as women expected to work as a doctor, as a teacher, but when it comes to the unfamiliar field, she will, encounter with a lot of obstacles. So this is happening exactly when it comes to the artwork or artistic field. So a lot of women are still, encounter with a lot of challenges to be an artist. But the good thing, we at Basement, we find women's participation is very large compared with men. But this participation is still filled with a lot of challenges. We always try to, encourage this participation because we think that if we do that in the artistic way, the gender gap will be reduced in all respects.
Thank you so much. We've covered so much in a very short space of time, and I know that I have so many questions left, and I know there's some questions in the Q&A. To my panelists, thank you so much. I encourage you to continue to respond to the questions which have emerged most recently in the Q&A. If anybody hasn't had their questions answered or hasn't had the opportunity yet, please do share these. Some of our panelists will be staying around. So Sophia, Rima, Intisar, Shaima, thank you so much. Please, I encourage you to check out, to the audience, check out the films which are available on demand. You can see Intisar's film there, and as well as her peers. Mohammed, Ahmed, everyone, thank you behind the scenes, to our interpreters. I now hand over to Mohammed. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you, Nicole. Thank you to the speakers. Before we go on to our next intervention, I'd like to invite Marco to share the video with us.
هل يحفظ الأدنى؟ هل يحفظ الأدنى ويرفع شأنه؟ وأنا يدمر فني المعماري. فأجابني قاضي التراث مرددا: الآن أحكم حكمي الإجباري. ألزمت أبناء البلاد جميعهم بإعادة الترميم للآثار. أنا أحب التراث، أحب كل ما يتعلق بوطني. أتت هذه الدورة لتكمل هذا الشيء الذي أنا كنت أريده من قبل. استطعت أن أكتب قصائد تراثية بشكل أعمق.
النص الشعري الشعبي الذي قدمته سبا تحدث عن موضوع تهريب الآثار بطريقة فنية جميلة جدا، من خلال تصوير حلم، عبارة تحول الحلم إلى كابوس بسبب أنه كاد أن يبيع الآثار، كاد أن يتخلى عن هذا الجزء من التراث المادي المهم. في نصها الفصيح قدمت تجربة بخصوص حماية التراث المادي، أيضا إعادة إعمار الأماكن التي تضررت بسبب الحرب. لا تقل
المشروع أضاف لي الإثراء الشعري وكذلك الفهم الواسع. أما على المستوى الثقافي فقد أضاف لي معرفة كبيرة بالتراث وبالتاريخ.
مهارة التعامل مع منصات التواصل الاجتماعي، هذا الأمر كان له أهمية مضاعفة فيما يتعلق بالنقد مقابل العمل، حيث أنها تعطي فرصة لهؤلاء الشباب أن يوجدوا منصات خاصة بهم يستطيعون من خلال الانطلاق والتعريف بأنفسهم للجمهور وللعالم.
بإذن الله أن نحن نكون سبب كبير ورئيسي لنعيد الجميع إلى إعادة إعمار التراث. حاولنا أننا نوجد بعض المشاكل والأخطار التي يمر بها تراثنا، وحاولنا خلالها بإيجاد الحلول لتلك المشاكل من خلال تجسيدها في أبيات شعرية. فلتنقذوا الآثار قبل فنائها من بعضكم والحرب والأمطار، فأجاب كل الحاضرين ورددوا هيا بنا حيا على الإعمار.
Thank you all for watching the video with us. Shiba or Seba found poetry as a form of expression, a form that she can use to send messages and convey them to people. And being from the Arab world and being from Yemen, and Yemen itself has a strong history of poetry. And the project we funded with SMEPS and the European Union was one of the most successful projects to employ poets, and Saba was one of them. They have produced actually a booklet that has a collection of poems they produced, and I invite you all to check it out on Wuju's website. We move next to another artist, another young Yemeni cultural operator, who is extremely creative, and this is something that I hope comes through during his presentation and speech. We thought that we should give you some time to listen to artistic works being carried out by artists, to give them a platform. And I'm very honored to introduce Asim Abdulaziz, to have this short conversation, to see his work, to see his perspective about the culture and creative industries, and to hear his voice. Asim, do you hear?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, you have the floor.
Yeah, thank you, Mohammed, for your introduction, and thanks to everyone who joined here today. I find it very important to shed light on art in Yemen and the art industry scene overall, especially as a young artist living in Aden, Yemen. I find it very essential and important to show to the whole world what are we going through in a daily basis. I always believe that Yemen is a place that artists has to push 10, 20 times harder than any other artist in any other country, because what we are going through is not something easy. Like 3 minutes ago, my connection cut off, and we are living in stress 24-hour because of the country situation. So imagine uploading files or imagine working on projects. It's not an easy mission at all. I am Asim Abdulaziz, a young artist, a visual artist and experimental director, as well as a producer at Adenium film production company in Aden. I have worked on multiple projects related to art, and I have pursued my bachelor's degree in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. I have studied international business, and now I am here in Aden, decided to settle down in Yemen, despite what the crazy situation that we live in, because I found art in Aden and I found art in Yemen, and that might be something a little bit confusing, because I always get a question from foreigners saying that how come you live in a war-zone country, yet you see art everywhere? And I think that if you decided to come here, you would know exactly the things that we experience and the things that we feel in a daily basis. I flew all the way to Malaysia in 2015 after the civil war that we experienced. At that moment, I had promised myself in a way to never return back to Yemen and to never return back to Aden at all. As a young person in his 16th and 17th, I think I have been through so much pain. Me and all the citizens who have experienced war, I have lost a lot of family members, a lot of friends, and sadly, I have seen my city destroyed in front of me, knowing that I have no power to make any changes. 4 years has passed, and then I decided to come back to Yemen. And with all the experiences that I have been through, I decided to come back and spread art, knowing that it is very important for me as a young artist to show the other side of Yemen that media doesn't usually cover. I think media in a way are too much focused on war and too much focused on the ugly side of Aden and Yemen and Sana'a and all the other districts, and leaving and ignoring the fact that we are a country that has a rich culture and a rich heritage, and that it is our responsibility and it is my responsibility as a young artist to show that to the whole world. When I returned back to Yemen at the beginning, I had no plan of what I was going to do. But the only thing that was very clear to me is that if I'm going to settle down in Yemen with the situation, then I have to do something that I love, which is visual art and experimental. So it's been now almost 2 years in Yemen. I have worked on multiple projects, and I would like from you, Mohammed, please, if you could share the other slide. Yeah, can you hear me, Mohammed? Yeah, so basically, this is one of my projects that I have been working on last year. It is a series that's called Detach, and it is a personal series of me going through an experience of returning back to my country after 4 years of staying away from there. The emotional gap that I felt between me and people when I returned back, I felt that there is a huge psychological gap between me and my family, between me and my friends, between me and the city itself. I would go back home and having a lot of questions of what has happened for the past 4 years. And then I realized after that is that after a war, people aren't the same anymore. Personalities changed. So this exact photograph shows the gap that me and other people experienced after me being away from a war for 4 years. Mohammed, could you please share the second? Yeah, thank you. This one is one of my favorite photographs. It's entitled, and it's called Peel a Potato. And it has an interesting story because one day I was in the market, and then suddenly I heard someone saying an Arabic phrase that says, "Qashar batat," which means peel up. And usually this phrase is used to describe someone who has no power, someone who is weak and he has nothing to do to make any changes. So when I returned back home, I was thinking of the photograph. I was thinking of building a project or creating a photo that describes how a Yemeni citizen is in Yemen, how we are powerless, and how there is always a bigger power. There is always a government that will always won't give any chance to citizens to make any changes. So this photograph is taken, and the background is a destroyed building, as you see, and it's me peeling a potato, knowing that I have no power to make or any changes to make in the country. Can you share the next slide, please? This one is a flowered face, single photograph, and it's expressing a dark-skinned Yemeni guy and what we face is because people in Yemen think that we don't actually have a racism against people with dark skin, but actually we do, and I face that personally. And I always get the comment of, "Oh, you have a dark skin, you are a dark skin guy, so what about wearing something white to reflect?" I always get annoying comments from people to tell me how to do my art and how I can reflect my dark skin through the photographs that I do. So in this photographs, I purposely chosen a black flower with a dark-skinned person who's me to show to the world that the comments aren't supposed to be there all the time, and that as an artist and a dark-skinned artist, I can always express myself in the way that I feel comfortable with. Yeah, could you share the next slide, please? Yeah. This is a series that's called Waiting, and this describes the difference of how I used to think and my life from Malaysia compared to Yemen. We all go through this kind of period where whenever we are waiting in a place, you always think of something particular. If you are in the streets or you are in a coffee shop waiting for your friend, we always have this kind of thoughts. But what I realized lately is that the thoughts that people who live outside of Yemen is totally different compared to the thoughts that we have in Yemen. People in Yemen, whenever they have a space to think, they would always think of the things that make us exhausted with life here. I would always think of electricity when we turn on. I would always think of internet. I would always think of how safe I am in this country and how limited my expression is, because as a young artist in a world, I don't think it's smart to be so wild with art, because we are always under threatened and we are always scared to share too much, knowing that there is no safety in the country. And next, I will share with you my last photograph. Yeah, this is Homesick. Homesick basically is one of my favorite, and it's a very personal project that I have created for the past year. It was funded from AFAQ. I started this idea of homesick when I traveled to Malaysia. The meaning of homesick itself, it means the feeling of missing home while you are away from home itself. And the interesting part is that when I left Yemen and I decided to stay in Malaysia, I never experienced the feeling of homesick, not even for a second. And I never felt that I need to go back to Yemen. And I think that was because to the consequences of the war itself. So, but what made it more interesting is that when I returned back to Yemen, I felt homesick in my own home, in my own country. And that drew a very big question. Where is home? Like, is Yemen is my home, or Malaysia? Or I was so confused when I returned back, and I had many questions that I needed to solve, and I needed to find an answer for. So one day while I was walking in the streets, I saw a destroyed building, and I decided to go and see what's going on inside. So when I went inside, I saw an apartment that was fully decorated, and people clothing was there, and people equipment was there, the kitchen was there, yet the building was destroyed and they had to move to survive. In that moment, I felt that this place I need to make a project for. This is what it feels to be homesick. So I made the research and I met the guy who has this apartment, and we had a very deep discussion of home is. I asked him many questions, and I was like, I need to reflect this. I need to reflect what I have felt personally. And I feel as an artist, I am also responsible to reflect what my community are going through every single day, of the feeling of homesickness and the feeling of missing home while we are in the country itself. Next photos are the making of the film. No, not this one, actually, Muhammad, the other one, behind the scene. Yes, the film, the idea itself started with a series photography, and then it was developed when I saw AFAQ posting a mini grant for supporting artists. So I was like, give it a try and apply for it to make a short film. So I gave it a try and I got the grant, and I would like to thank AFAQ, and especially the representative is here today, for giving us young artists the chance and the opportunity to express our identity and our thoughts and emotions through art. So it was first, Homesick was first a series photography project, then it was developed to a short film, a 5-minute film that describes the feeling of feeling homesick in Aden, Yemen. So I'm not sure if you could share a short teaser now.
Marcus, if you can play the teaser, please. Thank you very much, Asim, for this extremely inspiring intervention and very raw, and it is very much refreshing to just take off the hat and the silos and the TV and the computer screens that we're watching always from 9 to 8 or throughout the day, and focus on the experiences that young people do. Before we go next, I have a question. You have touched on many topics that are part of international trends of conversation. You talked about racism, about feeling of alienation. You talked about the idea of the essence of diaspora. Do you think, as a young artist, that your voice is heard, that your contribution is recognized as part of the larger conversation, or maybe noise that's going around?
Thank you for the question, Mohammed. Yes, I believe that my voice was heard, and I believe that I still have a long journey for me to represent my country in a different way compared to what media represents, and especially that I've been working on making experimental films, which is kind of a new medium in Yemen. This is an opportunity for me to show the other side of Yemen and to show and to fight very hard, knowing that there is no any support from governments, there is no any support from the country itself. So I reached to a point where it's either I have to get an opportunities by my own, or either I would be staying at home trying to get an opportunity from a government that never cared. So I think that my voice was heard, but I still believe that I have a lot of work to do to change the stereotypes that Yemen is flooded with.
Thank you so much, Asim. I think we will have to move to the next session, but I invite all of the attendees today to search Asim, to look at his work and see, potential possibility to buy his art. I think this should go to all of the people that we're highlighting today. Please go watch their films and look up their work and see how possible ways that you can really support the Yemeni artists. I think your intervention is a perfect segue to our next session. I am moderating the next session, which is titled Building Engagement and Community Commitment to Culture and Peace in Yemen. This particular session is the fifth for the day and the last for the conference, but it is of a particular interest because it aims at discussing the intersection between culture, community engagement, and peace building. As a country living in its 7th year of conflict, we have heard about a lot of different projects and a lot of different initiatives and a lot of different terms being thrown around, trying to identify a way to reach to a peaceful situation in the country, a peaceful resolution to what the Yemeni people are facing. But the question is, does art and culture have a place within this dialogue? Do artists have a voice that needs to be contributing to the peace process or peace building process? Do their work contribute to a more flexible reality than the rigid and traditional means of communication, track 1, track 2, peacekeeping, capacity building? Do youth in general have a voice, and are there platforms that really help them reach their voice? Do these platforms support creative tendencies for young people to send their voices? Today, I'm very honored to have 3 fascinating speakers who have years of experiences and extremely talented in their own professions to try to answer a number of these questions. I would like first to introduce a colleague, a friend, and a mentor, Ismini Paella from the Special Envoy's Office. Ismini has been working for the Special Envoy's Office since 2019, leading strategic communications and public information efforts in the office. She has previously worked on different capacities in the UN, whether in a peacekeeping operations, strategic communications, or managing crises in general. Ismini will share with us an answer to the question, how does the Office of the Special Envoy, Martin Griffith, amplify the voices of young Yemenis within the peace process, and is art and culture part of this effort that you're taking?
Thank you so much, Mohammed. I hope you can hear me.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you for the introduction, and the honor is totally mine, and the privilege to be here with you and among all these really inspiring colleagues and artists. I had to say I was really also inspired by what Asim presented, also Entisar and Shaima before. I mean, this is exactly why I think all these collective efforts of artists is what there is hope for, obviously a better future for Yemen. And I think we see it here in front of us. So to answer your question, trying to answer your question, first of all, in our, the Office of the Special Envoy, the UN Office of the Special Envoy has let's say, at the same time, a limited but also a broad mandate. So the limited mandate is like try to make peace between the two parties to the conflict. But then the broader mandate is, of course, include in these efforts the voices of Yemeni people in different Yemeni constituencies. And usually from a political office, this is usually interpreted in a way of get political parties, civil society, or women's groups, etc., into that inclusion effort. So culture and cultural operators are not the immediate, let's say, target audience, usually in such political missions. However, we have been trying since last year to reach out as well to these groups and to the cultural operators, because yes, culture and arts can play a very decisive role in peace building. It is tied to the freedom of expression, and as all of the artists that spoke with us and also other cultural operators told us, it speaks directly to people's hearts. It can mobilize, it can support peace efforts, it can be like produce constructive criticism to efforts to advance peace. So yes, it has a very critical role to play. And unfortunately, we know that culture, even in countries that are developed and are in peace, it's usually underfunded. So we can imagine how it is in a conflict situation like this in Yemen, and we just heard from Asim and others saying so. So it's, I think, even more of a responsibility from the international community or actors that are engaged in Yemen to support these voices of Yemeni artists. That's to answer your question. But let me know if you would like me to go ahead and also present what we are doing.
Yes. If you can, yes, show us some examples of how you are amplifying the voices of your people.
So that's fine. So I'll give maybe two examples. Last year, we actually partnered with UNESCO and other also NGOs and civil society organizations in our first large-scale listening exercise we did through digital consultations throughout Yemen. It was really using new technologies to have an open digital conversation with over 600 Yemenis on all the peace efforts that the office has been doing last year. So we assessed the views and opinions and feedback and sentiment and opened the discussion to all those Yemenis to give us ideas on all these issues that were in the peace agenda. For example, the ceasefire, the need for a ceasefire, the need to address back then the pandemic of COVID-19. How do we resume the political process? And how do we, what is the peace vision? What is the vision of the Yemenis for a comprehensive peace agreement? What it should include? So this was an exercise that was the first of its kind in an active mediation process led by the United Nations, and we were very fortunate also to partner with UNESCO, where to provide us with participants out of their cultural network and their cultural operators. So that was maybe the first time that we actually, in an organized way, reached out to this group. And the second is, that's the first example. The second is what we are trying to do now, which is a work in progress. Again, partnering with UNESCO, but also with our colleagues in headquarters to produce a virtual reality film on Yemen to be screened for the diplomats in the Security Council. And maybe let me go and explain a bit the thinking behind it. The United Nations Security Council is the decision-making body on peace and security. But usually the delegates rarely get to visit the countries that they are dealing with and see firsthand the conflict area. And now with COVID-19, this made it even less possible. So yes, who briefs the Security Council? They take the information from the UN representatives, for example, in our case, from the UN Special Envoy, from the humanitarian agencies, from NGOs. They, of course, read the media, but they don't really have the chance to listen to real Yemenis on the ground and have a more closer to reality experience of the country. So this is now what we are trying to do, as I said, in partnership with our colleagues in HQ, in the headquarters, and UNESCO, to produce this virtual reality film with the objective to elevate the Yemeni voices to the Security Council and to the diplomats, for Yemenis to speak for themselves, but also to a wider audience that is taking interest in Yemen. And how do we do that? We are partnering with Yemeni filmmakers and cultural operators inside and outside the country. So even from the beginning, from conceptualizing the film, we started discussing with Yemenis on themes and approaches for such a film. We finalized the idea and the concept note in partnership with Yemeni directors, and we are, of course, using Yemeni filmmakers on the ground to do the actual production. So right now we are hopefully moving slowly to the post-production stage, and we hope that you will be able to see our efforts maybe in the next couple of months. This documentary is, again, after consultations with Yemenis, we decided that we'll focus on beekeeping. And why? Because Yemeni honey is like such a symbolic product of Yemen, and it focuses on two main characters, both beekeepers, a lady and a man, who are walking us through their stories and their daily lives, getting a closer glimpse of their struggles and how they address them through strength, through creativity and persistence. And we really hope that this effort will inspire also organizations to invest more on culture and creative arts, to promote a balanced image of Yemen. And again, I'm going back to what Asim said, something like which goes away from the media headlines. And we know where the media focus, they focus on the humanitarian crisis and the military war, but something that will give, as I said, a more balanced image of the country through Yemenis, speaking themselves to the world and to promote in a more compelling way their voices and their longing for peace and the reconstruction of the country. So, as I said, this is the first time that we are doing this effort, again, recognizing what we said earlier, that arts do have a role in peace building. And well, we'll see, at the end, the final product, and we can assess it maybe in a later conference, so how it worked, but it's definitely something we're very excited to work on.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Ismini. And just a point that you raised is that actually cultural operators, they do wear different hats. I mean, they don't have to be designated as cultural operators. You find them part of, track 2 talks. There is a very talented sculptor and painter from Aden who is part of a women-led initiative as part of your peace track, track 2 of peace talks. So I think the idea is how to push forward that the identity or the identification that these are part of the culture sector, but they should be able to survive. They should be able to listen to without being attached to something else. You don't need to be an expert on the Middle East or you be an activist in a political sense in order for the voice to be heard. And I think at UNESCO and our mandate and at the Special Envoy's Office, the current strategy that you have tries to reinforce this. And our next speaker also will share with us how a strong partner for us in Yemen is implementing this. Please allow me to welcome Ms. Jacqueline Lomp, the CEO of R&W Media, which is an international media organization based in the Netherlands. R&W Media uses digital media to create positive social change in restrictive settings. Jacqueline joined R&W Media in 2016 and led transformation of the organization into a house of experts, creating out-of-the-box solutions to some of today's most urgent human rights issues. Thank you for being with us, Jacqueline, or Ms. Lomp. I would like to, ask you a question which you will answer in the presentation you have, is that during times of conflict, youth voices, the voices of youth tend to be muffled by the sounds of the guns. And media sometimes is polarized, sometimes is politicized. And we would like to know how R&W Media is providing young Yemenis, artists, cultural operators with a stake to participate and make their voices heard.
Thank you, Mohammed. Thank you so much. And I'm really honored to be here. And honored to follow on all these experts and artists. And yes, as many, there's hope, but I would like to add there's so much power. And Mohammed, you just mentioned the fact that Yemen has been in a war for 7 years now. But I'm always impressed to see what young people bring to the table in a country in war after 7 years. So thank you so much for inviting me, and I hope I can inspire you with talking about what our partner Manasati 30 and we as an organization have done and have achieved in Yemen. So yes, I'm Jacqueline Lampe, CEO of R&W Media. We build digital communities for social change, and we use online platforms. Oh, that slide is fine, Mohammed. The next slide. We use online platforms such as websites, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube, and we use them to reach our young audience around the world, and we offer inclusive, safe, and brave spaces so they can discuss important topics such as peace building in Yemen, but also entrepreneurship in Egypt or election in Burundi. If I may have the next slide. Manasati 30 is one of our partners operating in Yemen. It's an active online community that interacts directly with young people. And in the absence of reliable information and despite limited internet access, young people find their way online, looking for alternative channels to express themselves. Manasati 30 offers a safe space to do just that, express themselves. Next slide, please. Here you see some numbers from 2020, and I'm always impressed to show the numbers. It is an active online community that interacts directly with young people. You can see that our website pages have been viewed more than 700,000 times. Our content on social media has reached young people, including our 294,000 fans, more than 76 million times. And they have engaged with our content by liking, commenting, and sharing more than 1 million times. Impressive figures, which really bring about change. If I may have the next slide. So Cultural Heritage Phase 2, we already heard it. It's one of the projects implemented by Manasati 30 in partnership with UNESCO and funded by EU. The objective of this project is to strengthen social cohesion through cultural activities. It aims to encourage young people to connect, participate, and contribute meaningfully to their society using the power of culture. Supporting creativity and talent is central in this objective. Through various activities, we engaged with artists from different regions in Yemen to work on joint art projects, and using our online platforms, we invited the audience to celebrate the cultural diversity of Yemen. And here you see what we produced. We produced a song, 10 videos actually, and we delivered 2 trainings, digital engagement trainings for artists and professionals in the cultural industry, but also storytelling training for Yemeni artists in the diaspora. And when I talk about we, it's all about Manasati 30. So what did we achieve? We reached, with those 10 videos, almost 2.5 million young Yemenis. Again, an amazing figure. They viewed the video almost 1.5 million times. They reacted 47,000 times, commented 6,000 times, and shared a little less than 6,000 times. Again, impressive to see how much young people were engaged through those videos and the song and the trainings. So if I may go to the next slide, please, because I think it's also important to see that the young Yemenis shared with us what it meant for them. So it is about having more confidence. It is about better quality of content. It's about building more knowledge about content techniques in media, various forms of media. And it also helped them to target more and to focus more on specific target groups. If I can have the next slide. Of course, we faced some challenges. We learned a lot. It was hard to find female musicians, and many of the Yemeni creatives we contacted refused to be filmed, and especially women. And one of the biggest challenges was to extract security clearances, especially for shooting in Sana'a. And both finding initiatives run by young people and filming was also difficult in some of the regions due to the ongoing armed conflict. Last but not least, and we heard Asim mention it as well, we had quite some internet challenges, which made it really difficult to upload the videos. If I may have the next slide, please. So next, I would like to draw your attention to our peace building project. In 2018, parties to the conflict in Yemen agreed on a series of confidence building measures. We heard about it earlier in the speeches. This is known as the Stockholm Agreement, coordinated by the Special Envoy for Yemen. in a country where 20 out of 29 million people are under the age of 30, we noticed that young people young men and young women were lacking in participation in the peace building conversations. So in partnership with UNESCO and funded by the UNFPA, we launched a project to contribute to access to information and to safe spaces for dialogue. We wanted to offer a platform where young Yemenis can find relevant and reliable information on peace building efforts. We wanted to engage youth broadly by highlighting successful peace building activities and by organizing all kinds of debates and online surveys. We offered a space where young Yemenis could voice their views, and we offered training to young journalists, women particularly, to empower them and help them have a positive impact. If I may have the next slide, please. So what did we achieve? Again, 120 entries, 94,000 likes, comments, and shares. But what I really wanted to highlight here is the campaign #EnoughWar, which was really successful. On Facebook alone, 38,000 people participated in the campaign, and the campaign went viral in and outside of Yemen. And young people participated by sharing their stories, sharing campaign videos, cartoons, changing their profile pictures. And even though the campaign has officially finished, we still receive contributions, which says something about engagement. And if I may have the next slide, it's all about engagement. So we carried out surveys, held multi-day trainings. But again, I wanted to highlight the peace building contest. The team organized a contest for peace building initiative by youth. 70 entries were submitted, ranging from online campaigns, trainings, debates, interviews with influencers, awareness-raising activities, photography competitions, live events, short films, cartoons, and what have you. And 7 of these were selected by a panel, receiving an opportunity to expand and develop the initiative and to shoot a short film. And the first of these have already reached 2.5 million views. If I may have the next slide, please. And this is what the young Yemenis shared. It's about braveness to say the truth as a journalist about the catastrophe we live that gets worse day by day. And it is about being re-energized by pushing us forward to keep going and not to surrender. Now we will resume our work on peace building. I hope you took some time to read these comments carefully, because this is what our work is about. It's about numbers, but it is also about the change we achieve among these young people. Again, if I may go exactly, we learned lessons, and of course it's all about COVID, which which made us cancel offline debates. But we learned also some lessons about the involvement of young people. And I mentioned it before, one of the main targets was to reach women and give them a voice in peace building efforts. And in journalistic trainings, that worked very well, with the majority of participants being women. The engagement on the website increased among women from 55% to 63%, an additional 18%, which is really impressive. But social media is a different matter, where only 23% of the total engagement came from women. This is no surprise, as only an estimated 15% of women use social media in Yemen. But still, this is an important lesson, because we need to keep it in mind with future campaigns. I think when we look at the future, I think together with our core partner, Manasati 30, we really hope to keep contributing to peace building in Yemen. We find it extremely important to expose young people to multiple perspectives in safe online spaces, so to help alleviate the extreme viewpoints and contribute to peace. None of what we have achieved would have been possible without the collaboration of our international and local partners, such as UNESCO and UNFPA, the embassies, and without the support of our funder, the EU Commission. We are really proud of our work with our partners, Manasati 30, UNESCO, UNFPA, and UN Peace Building Fund. We've created a sizable community of young Yemenis who, in all their diversity, are empowered and determined to contribute to peace in their country. And I just want to remember you the quote of one of our users, which I showed before. Winning an award gave us new energy to keep going and not to surrender. Now we will resume our work on peace building. And it says it all. It says it all. It is everything we have achieved. And this is what our work is about. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ms. Lomb. I think I will keep my questions to the Q&A time. So I will move to my third speaker. I am happy and honored to introduce Sumaya Gamal. Sumaya is a Yemeni content creator, presenter with a passion for travel and social sciences. She's known as the first Yemeni female traveler. Her content is characterized by the pursuit of mental clarity, inner peace, and balance. Sumaya is also known for her spontaneity, honesty, and transparency in front of the public eye. She's not afraid to show her feelings, which vary between joy, sadness, fear, and courage. Sumaya, you have prepared for us a short presentation to share the time that you got to come back to Yemen as a member of the Yemeni diaspora, to take the world with you to visit historic sites that show the wealth and unique culture of Yemen. Please, you have the floor if you can share your screen.
Thank you. Thank you, Mohammed, for the introduction. Okay, let me share my screen. Okay, share screen. Can you see my screen?
Not yet.
Okay, I think I clicked on share screen, but share screen. Okay. Now you can see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Sorry for that technical issue. Okay. So first, I would like to express my gratitude for being part of this amazing event. Thank you for all the organizers. My presentation will be about the mini documentary series on cultural heritage that I did in Yemen in collaboration with the UNESCO, the EU, and the RNW media. So my presentation will consist of two parts. The first one, I will share my experience on the ground while doing the video series, and also some of the feedback I got after publishing it from the audience. Then I will share my humble opinion on engaging youth in culture, like, of course, from my perspective. So 7 years ago, I left Yemen to travel the world. It was the one impossible thing made possible that I did in my life, which I'm so grateful for. And during my travels, I met a lot of people, but those that I want to mention are the older people who actually visited Yemen and who told me the stories about the buildings, the culture, and the history they encountered that I myself, as a Yemeni, didn't know. So at that moment, a dream was born. I dreamt of going back to Yemen, because when I left, I had no plans of going back. But after meeting these people, I dreamt of going back to Yemen and traveling every bit of it, create content and beautiful films about the people telling their stories and the culture there. Then years later, I got surprised to be contacted and offered an opportunity to host a mini series on cultural heritage in Yemen. I said yes directly, despite all the dangers. And the first thing I did after that is Googling cultural heritage, because I didn't know what it was and I had no idea about it. I was ashamed, but I learned a lot later on. So I went to Yemen and I had only 18 days to produce 5 episodes, very short, limited time. And I realized the fastest time to get information about the culture and the heritage, not the easiest though, is to talk to people directly. So I used my only off day, like the first day of arrival was like a rest day, but I used it to go to the cafe, women cafe, and I talked to as many women as possible. I was asking them about their culture, their traditions. It was awkward at first because I was like jumping from table to table, asking women, like, who's this weird girl asking us about our traditions? But it was fun. And my heart was so warm to receive all the kindness and to meet all of these beautiful women who offered me, like who invited me to their homes. They even offered me to use their traditional clothes to wear while shooting the videos. And they shared everything with me. As you can see in the pictures here, this is from one of the houses of these women who promised to show me all the bridal elements they use in Aden, which was like a great thing. And this was the most positive observation that I had during this experience. But then, of course, there were a lot of challenges that I will only share 3 of them in a form of mini stories. As you can see in the first picture, this was in Aden. We were filming in the street and the videographer told me, Sumaya, you have only 1 take to say your script because we don't want to put ourselves in danger. If someone sees us, we're going to be in trouble. So I actually got in front of the camera. I was saying my script and I can see the fear in the eyes of the videographers if someone sees us. And then they're like, okay, cut, let's go inside the car. So it was like that, on and off, when people are not there to see us because they're afraid if someone reports on us. So I learned that, unfortunately, it is a crime in Yemen to hold a camera. To the next story, which was in Yemen, in Sana'a, we were filming in this, in Old Sana'a, in this traditional place. And then suddenly, I was just talking normally to the camera. Suddenly, a man shouts at me, threatening me, and he was calling all the other men. He was saying, burn that beep. And he was really shouting loud. It was so scary. And he had all kinds of weapons with him. People in Yemen, they have the guns and the jambia and stuff. So I actually got mad of the way he was talking to me. So I wanted to reply, but the team held me and we left the place. So we didn't continue filming. So I learned that it's another crime to be a woman in front of a camera in Yemen. The third one was my experience while traveling from city to city because I was traveling alone, only meeting videographers in different cities. When I was traveling from Sana'a to Hadramaut, I got stopped 3 times by checkpoints and I was not allowed to go to Hadramaut because I didn't have a male guardian. So it was maybe the most dangerous, horrible experience because I tried all my best to convince them. Even the driver was trying. He gave them bribes, everything, but there was no chance. They were like, no, you're not going back. Eventually we managed, but it was a very tough one. What I would change about the experience? Nothing, actually. It was amazing, but I wish I had more time. 18 days was not enough to get the information, do the scouting. We didn't do scouting. We were just going to locations and then sometimes I would write the script in the rides between the locations. So the time was super, super tight. So after we published the series, the feedback was actually positive mostly. I got surprised because usually I get some negative comments since like my appearance is kind of different to the traditions in Yemen, but this time it was all positive. And what I noticed specifically is the influence it had on the audience. For example, people themselves, they noticed how unique they are. Like they have all these traditions and culture, but they think it's normal because it's their day-to-day life. But then seeing me, I was like a mirror that reflects how unique they are because I was so impressed with all the clothes and the food and the traditions. And they're like, oh, really? Is it that cool? What do we have? Like, yes, it's super cool. And then seeing that in the videos and the outcome in the finished product and you see their comments, it was really nice. Another thing I noticed was that people from different cities were admiring the heritage of others, especially the clothes, the fashion. So people from Sana'a would say, wow, the Hadrami dress is so beautiful and vice versa. So it was very nice to see how sharing the culture of different cities kind of made a peaceful conversation between these young people. And they just forgot all the differences they have, all the different opinions that made them fight each other, and stopped for a moment to appreciate each other's beauty, which is very, very beautiful. And I think this is one of the main goals that we want, that I and RNW Media and all the participants want to reach, which we can see that we kind of achieved somehow. People outside of Yemen were also impressed because the only thing they know about it is the war and famine, but they were surprised that there is so much beauty and culture there and how people are resilient. And I just thought that we have a voice and we have power. Like the media portrays it in a certain way, but we can shift the narrative using social media and amplify our voices, telling our stories how we want our stories to be told. Like, I'm not gonna wait for the media to present me in a certain way. I'm just gonna stand up and create that content about Yemen and show how Yemenis really are from my perspective. And we have that power to do that with social media. So doing that, this encourages people to help Yemen, not like because we have war and famine, but also because we have a heritage that is a human heritage, that if we didn't protect, it will die and we will lose a big piece of the puzzle of the beauty of humanity. Okay, so engaging youth in culture, as you can see, like one of the ways was through the videos, but why? Now, when I thought about these questions, I thought because culture and art and beauty and the heritage can be used as a language for peace, as many of the speakers mentioned before. I'm not gonna dig in this idea more. We saw that art comes from the heart to the heart, and there is no way it can participate in conflict. The only language art speaks is peace. And another thing I noticed is that youth has a lot of energy that they don't know where to put. And this is what the ideologies are using. They're using the youth energy and giving them guns and encouraging them to fight. But why not encourage them to use their free time and their energy to learn art and learn how to express themselves in the language of art rather than the language of gun? I mean, isn't it better seeing young people dancing instead of holding guns? And like, but how? There's so many.
So Maya, just if you can finish in 1 minute and a half.
Yeah. This is the last one. So how we can engage youth, there's so many ways, like, but most of the ones I encountered while doing the series is the artifacts. Like a lot of young people are using the culture and doing the artifacts, like as you can see in the first picture from Aden. And then the second one, there's a young man who uses the traditional wood carving and his honey making, which was really, really cool how he integrated culture and business. And then the second way is by creating content and films and art and using the creative industries. But in the creative industries, I would stress on a point of being flexible with the subject, telling the stories or the part of the culture that is related to the people themselves, and changing the way we tell the stories to suit the audience, and being present in more than one platform, not only Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and even TikTok. I think that's mostly it is. I just want to say one final thing. This opportunity gave me a sort of meaning and purpose. I was so happy that I was given a chance to give back to my country, and I discovered that I have a huge interest in cultural heritage and sharing cultural heritage that I didn't know was before. And I'm sure I'm not the only one who shares this. There's so many Yemeni people who are just waiting for the opportunity to do it. Thank you for listening.
Thank you so much, Sumaya, for sharing with us your experience of making the series in Yemen. As a content creator, you an influencer, you have the reach to millions of young Yemenis, either in Yemen, diaspora, or even young people from around the world. And we appreciate the time and the effort you take to try to counter the narrative that is dominantly being taken by media or unfortunately some other entities that would like to keep the country in one particular image than the other. I think the floor is open for question and answer. Please feel free to put your questions. But as we're waiting for your questions, I have a couple of questions I want to ask. I would like to ask Ms. Long. You mentioned a lot of interesting figures. Millions of people are being reached. Are being reached through different means and through digital platforms. My question is, how do RNW Media measure and track this impact on real life concretely?
Yeah, thank you for the question, Mohammed. I think it's a very important question. It all starts with the reach and the comments and the shares and the likes to understand what young people do with our content. And we can follow them, we can analyze in all kinds of ways through digital indicators what they've been doing with the content, etc., etc. But we measure much more. We also measure change in behavior. We measure change and influencing social norms, change in knowledge and attitude. And we've done that. We've measured that through researches, surveys, all kinds of ways of asking feedback and input. We also carried out some external surveys. And I just wanted to mention two things. We looked into what kind of change young people perceived through our platforms. And after having used our content, over 60% perceived certain change in perceptions of, for instance, young people in and women engagement and women participation. So it really changed their perspectives. But another figure is if you use content which uses the tone of voice young people like, which uses the layout like young people like, you have 1.5 more times more young people who are attracted and who stay on longer and read more of your content. So that's why it's really important to involve media people who understand how to attract young people. We plan for that change. We plan for that change by smart targeting. And I talked about the participation of women, which for us is really an objective in the work we've done in Yemen. And that means that you tailor the content to young women as well, so that they are attracted more. You tailor the content. We moderate the dialogue, which is really important on Facebook. And you see a lot of violence on Facebook. So it's really important to moderate the dialogue and make sure that the polarization is managed by our moderators. So that's the way we measure some of the impact we have. And I hope that answers your question.
Thank you so much. I have a question to Ismini, if you can answer it in a very short time, if you don't mind, as we are running out of time. I've talked at the beginning about how traditional means of peace building efforts do not have some room of flexibility. But art and culture do build confidence between Yemenis themselves. You spoke about our current partnership to create the VR, but the VR, it's about to amplify the voices of Yemenis to the Security Council, to decision makers. Does the mandate of the Special Envoy has room to work on creating trust between Yemenis through culture, not necessarily through for decision makers, for the public?
Yes, thanks, Mohammed. That's a very interesting question, actually. I said the UN is a little bit rigid in political missions of how they go about their mandate, and usually the primary concern is around the politicians and the political parties, etc. However, having said that, yes, there is room, because the UN, at the end of the day, there are so many different branches of the UN, and we are always supposed to work in partnerships, which is what we are doing with UNESCO and what we are doing with other agencies. So although, maybe we will, it will take maybe some more time where you will see maybe in any special envoy's office around the world, a specialized team on culture. I don't think we're there yet. It's still like through the good offices of the special envoy, through his efforts and his team's effort to build confidence, because that's also our mandate, you can use all means, and culture is one of them. And this is where we very much rely on the partnerships, as I said, with UNESCO and with other partners, like what Jacqueline just explained, for example, the work that RNW Media does. And I'll take this opportunity just to say how useful this work is for us to basically listen to these voices of the youth and other cultural operators to basically get also a reality check and see where we're going. So yes, there is space. There are opportunities, and this is definitely an area that needs more exploring.
Thank you so much. I very much like the idea that UN agencies and international organizations are complementing each other's efforts, and I think this is something that identifies synergies where people can coordinate, build on, and apply in a collective manner. But another phase, another part to the idea of listening is I encourage young Yemenis to use their artistic abilities to express their feelings, to make their voices heard. So those who are listening at the other end can use it in a particular way that can help the country reach to a better place. Thank you so much for being with us for this session. I'm sorry we're running out of time, but we very much enjoyed listening to your presentations and having you answer some of our questions. We'd have loved to stay more, but unfortunately we're running out of time. I'd like to thank you, and we will go to the next intervention of our talk. I would like to invite the director, the UNESCO representative to GCC and Yemen, Dr. Anna Paolini, to take the floor and to discuss with us a wrap-up of the day and the day before, and way forward for us. Thank you. Anna, I think we can go to our originally scheduled video, if you don't mind, so we can save some time. So I think Marco, if you can put for us our video, and it's a result of the collaboration that UNESCO and RNW Media had. Listen to Yalla, the song.
لحظة، هذا يومنا، نتمنى نعيش متحابين، واحد لون قلوبنا، ما يوم نكون مختلفين.
لحظة، هذا يومنا، نتمنى نعيش متحابين، واحد لون قلوبنا، ما يوم نكون مختلفين.
نحيا بحب ونتحدى الصعب، وقلب مع قلب، للأيام الحلوة رايحين. يلا يلا يلا، انت وانا وهو ويا، يلا يلا يلا،
نرسم لوحة لأحلى دنيا، يلا يلا يلا،
انت وانا وهو وهي، يلا يلا يلا، نرسم لوحة لأحلى دنيا. جلبتنا بسواعد أهلنا وقصور سيولنا وملامحنا شباب وخضر غصن القلم بعدن أرض المنى ولقانا كلنا في صنعاء أرض سام.
ومنارة يا زبيد أنوارك مش بعيد في تاريخك مزيد وأهلك فيهم سلام ارسم حلمك تسلى على شطار المكلف وكراتر المعلى وحكايات الغرام.
انت وانا وهو وهي نرسم لوحة الأحلى دنيا. يلا 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 انت وانا وهو وهي يلا يلا نرسم لوحة الأحلى دنيا. انت وانا وهو وهي نرسم لوحة الأحلى دنيا. انت وانا وهو وهي نرسم لوحة الأحلى دنيا.
Thank you so much for watching the song with us. It took more than 100 young creative Yemenis, men and women, to make this song come to reality. We love the song. People love the song. It has been streamed over different radios, TV channels, and the essence of the message, let's build a better world together. I give the floor to the UNESCO representative, Dr. Anna Paolini, to give a closing remarks and way forward. Please go ahead.
Well, thank you very much, Mohammed. Let me start first of all by the end. So thanking really everybody, because these have been 2 amazing days, and I'm not saying it because I'm part of it and because our team made it possible, but because it was not only enriching and touching and moving, but in particular because we show, I think, another Yemen. We were talking about stereotype. I think that our colleague, in the last, when he presented the work of art, he said how difficult it is to move away from stereotype. He was talking about art, of course, but I'm talking about the stereotype of Yemen and the kind of information that, our media brings on the table. It's, the Yemen in conflict, the Yemen at war, and instead never the real soul of Yemen. I was lucky enough to see Yemen in the early 90s and then several times after that. And that's not what Yemen is and what Yemeni people are, and it's not what the young Yemeni definitely wants. So there is this, dream that Yalla Yalla was mentioning. No, we dream. This dream was mentioned yesterday by Wissam. We dream of a happier Yemen, yet we understand, the constraints. But if I look at what is our UNESCO mandate, really the peace starts in our mind and in our hearts. So I think we should always remember that. And it's not the other making the peace, it's us making the peace, all of us, wherever we are, with the people that sits next to us. But these are been these 2 impressive days, and this would have never been possible, first of all, for the youth of Yemen. All these young, talented, inspiring young artists that we were able to identify, and they were able to come to us and open up and share with us their dream, their vision, and what they want for the future. It would have not been possible also for all these youth that are workers and skilled laborers that are part of the other part of the project, that is the restoration of cultural heritage, for which this project gave a hint of hope, of a better livelihood, of taking better care of their families, or having a glimpse of a normal future, of a better future. So my first thanks, and I think that I can say the thank of all the team, of UNESCO, is really to the Yemeni youth. And the other one is, of course, to all the partners on the ground, the one that have helped us to reach the youth on the ground, and that have provide different platforms. And of course, we're talking about the Social Development Fund, we're talking about the R&W Media, but we are talking also about the Ministry of Culture, GOAM and GOVSI, and all the CSOs and all the NGOs that have really participated. This, I think, it's a participatory approach. It's really, we are all brought together by and inspired by a better future, to put culture at the center as an element of resilience. So it's a long list. I would like to thank each and every of you. There are some online, some more were yesterday, but this is very important. Partnership is key. And then, of course, there are the international partners, and there are, the UN agencies, whether, my colleague in the UNCT, Resident Coordinator Office, Office of the Special Envoy, other UN agency that had helped us also to be operational on the ground and share their insight and experience, and made possible as well for us to be present on the ground, because it's not given for granted that a UN that is not a humanitarian agency can work in such a difficult context. But we made, I think, through this project and our presence on the ground, that this is possible. And then, in fact, development and humanitarian should go hands in hands. And there is humanitarian is very short term, and then we are all looking in a crisis, whether it's a man-made crisis or an environmental crisis, and so on. We're looking for the future, and the future is going back to normal, is development. So thank you to all of you. Of course, I would like to thank our partner in making these 2 days possible. The Culture Solution, they gave us a hand. Our colleagues in headquarters, I thank, of course, our brilliant interpreters, and the team of UNESCO in Brussels that reached out to the Commission there and made a lot of efforts to put everything together. And last but not least, my wonderful colleagues at the office, Ahmed, Mohammed, Noor, and many others, Nabil, Tom, and I didn't put bullet points to thank all of you, probably Jakir, and many more that are behind the scenes, that are working not only for this event, but for this project to really for this project to make a difference. And I think if we, in our job, we make the difference in the life of one person, I think we have achieved something. And I think this is also the scope of the UN, to make really an impact and a change in the life of people. So, of course, we have seen that culture contribute to post-crisis recovery and growth. It's not the only way, but it is an indispensable way, because it's talking about, you know, identity. It's talking about who we are. Sumaya was talking, oh, I didn't know what cultural heritage or what culture was, because it's the normal, you know, you sing a song, you have a tradition here, you dress in a way, you use certain tools, is the normal, but it's not. It's really who you are, and it's different from someone else. So this is very, very important. I think the project has shown that it has the potential to contribute to boost the local economy. It has that it's about skills transfers, and it's really, I would say, look, you know, at culture in a holistic way. Of course, yesterday we spoke about, you know, 3 pillars, or a combination of what makes, you know, and of course communities are at the center. People, we are talking, this is a human center, is a people project. It's a project led by Yemeni for Yemenis, and I think this is what I like about this project, because it's, except few of us, let's say international, is really about Yemenis, and this is important. So local communities empowerment at all levels, from leaders to religious leaders to community leaders, it's very important. Engaging in discussion can also happen through mediators. And I see that, for example, SFD in our case play this tremendous role of mediating between different groups and different, you know, part of the countries, and to make sure that we are all on the same pace, and we all have the same focus, which is really empowering youth and protecting our cultural heritage and our cultural, sorry, not our, I'm saying our, like if I'm Yemeni, of the cultural expression of Yemen. And then of course we rely on experts, but mostly are Yemeni experts, and this is the beauty. There are so many experts and so much expertise and talent in the country. It's not just need to scratch a little bit the surface. So we have proved that cash interventions, like the application of the cash for work on culture, have contribute to this long-term dynamic. It really attract people on the front line and provide them with tools to maintain their livelihood. I think that young people have shown that they are showing voluntarily to come back to sustainable livelihood over violence. And I think that the project and the cash for work scheme is reinforcing these ideas. Of course, it's important to diversify skills through the cash for work scheme. We have work in cultural heritage and creative industries. It's not only probably about that. Yes, it is important. It is important also, we have worked in 4 cities, and that was the first decision, you know, and because we dealt with world heritage cities, but we also are completely conscious that there is, you know, Yemen is not only for cities. There is so much in the rural area that needs, and there is so much that through this cash for work scheme and empowering youth in villages, which are heritage villages, we can, you know, move in capillarity in other parts of the countries. And we hope that this will be possible in the future, so that not only urban youth will benefit, but also rural youth in different part of the country. I think that the end results of the project, I mean, we are not at the end of the project, but we are at 2/3. But if we make an assessment, we can say that we have worked well with the support of the different players on the ground. And I think we have shown that we are neutral actors that cares about that cares about the country, cares about people, and cares about heritage. I think that we have created, or not we have created, we have contributed, I hope, to create this positive image of Yemen, you know, to show, I mean, you have seen all these movies these days and videos and film and pictures, and there is of course much more than that what the experts has shown. Much more contents have been produced, that there is a Yemen that is that has a lot to give, and there is a strong message there that the youth want to pass through this project. So I think this is important. I think that the international partners, probably through this project, have also had a reality check of what works and what doesn't work, so also in conflict situation. And despite the situation and despite COVID on top of everything, you know, culture is still important, I would say essential, you know, is the nutriment for our souls. We cannot do without it. So we have the project have been fully community oriented, and this is I think it goes without saying, it was shown and in the several intervention. Yet there are of course some challenges ahead, and we have seen that, for example, women participation in some of the fields are being not high as we would have expected, but of course we have this aim to reach women even more and to give them more space. The challenges is still the fragmentation, of course, of the society by the conflict and COVID. But I think that we prove that everything is possible. If you believe in it, everything is possible. And if all your partners believe in it, and I think all the parties that I mentioned before on the ground believe in it, we can do it. In the moving forward, I think it's important to look at sustainability and at impact, or impact and sustainability. So I think Cash for Work is a scheme to empower youth, but maybe we have to go a little bit beyond that, because we have to help youth after they are empowered with the skills and the competencies to build their own businesses, you know, moving through maybe incubators, maybe building up capacity building schemes that can be certified in a way, so that it gives something, you know, to the youth that they can sell to improve their way of living and their employability. So the other issue is policies. You know, policies are important factor, you know, in the growing and in the building of a nation or a community. Someone was talking about the important to have copyright, establishing copyright for artists. This is all about, you know, setting legal grounds and policies. So this is something that has to be looked at. As I mentioned before, certification, you know, professional qualification. The Mejdaf project have shown, you know, the mentorship for contemporary art, for example. Manazati is another incubator, and so on. But maybe another step forward will be looking at certifications in a way, and I'm thinking of the unskilled laborers, for example, if they can get together into association, youth association, you know, of laborers in heritage reconstructions and so on. Having maybe a certification will build up also their trust and the confidence building and give them better opportunities. So another one that I see is maybe for a better impact, we need also maybe a better coordination of international actors working on cultural heritage to avoid maybe overlapping, but rather create synergies. I think that UNESCO has played this role in many situations, in many countries, where we provide, a platform of getting together. And I'm sure that thinking about the future, well, there are more, international cultural actors will be on the scenes. This will be really important to provide, formal space for coordination. And yesterday was also mentioned how to balance the foreign support toward local ownership. I think how to reach more community and people should, be also one of the threads that will lead the pathway of the development of this project. So I think that the project has shown that working on culture, despite the situation, is possible, that has proved solid and tangible results in cultural heritage, from flood prevention to reconstruction, as shown in the youth that we have supported them, and that we have given them maybe a bit of hope to come out and to come out of the stereotype and to come out and express themselves. We hope that this will continue. We know that the EU has been a tremendous partners in all of this, not only in Yemen, but also in other countries. And thanks to them, we have been able to reach where we are. So they have been fantastic partners and an enabler that understood the importance of culture to give a different image to the situation, and to provide livelihood and to provide to the young Yemenis, in this case of Yemen, really a hope for the future. So there is a lot that I would like to say. I think we have a very passionate team. I'm very passionate as well about this project. And I would like to thank again the EU, all the partners, the youth, the Yemenis, whoever worked with us, who I forgot at the beginning, forgive me. But you know that we know that you count and that you have made a difference in this project. So again, looking at sustainability in the point that I've mentioned, I think will be important. Look at some of the challenges and how to respond will be important. And with this note, I would like to pass the floor to the EU for their closing remark. And I would like to thank you again, all of you online now and before, for your active participation. Thank you.
Let me introduce Ms. Carolina Hedstrom, Head of Cooperation in the EU delegation to Yemen. Please, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Mohammed, and thank you, Anna. Thank you to the whole UNESCO team and the partners in the government of Yemen and the SFD and all the other partners for organizing this very important event. It's a real honor to be able to give some closing remarks at the end of these 2 days. From the European Union side, this 2-day conference, I think, had two primary objectives. One is to highlight and showcase the project and its achievements, and a second one is to learn from the project to date and feed that learning into our future plans. And on the first one, I think this project really does deserve to be showcased. We are very proud as the European Union to be the key donor to this project. As we've heard over the last 2 days, the project has a really unique and I would say quite brave design in combining cash for work with cultural heritage restoration. But it clearly works. The project is also very much in line with several of the European Union's key policy priorities. As you may know, the preservation and protection of cultural heritage and cultural diversity is an integral part of the core values of the European Union. And when it comes to the specific context in Yemen, we believe that economic development and peace building are the two greatest needs in Yemen at the moment. And this project, through its unique approach, can make a small but still a significant contribution to both of those through culture. Also, we're very proud of the partnerships created as part of this project. As Anna mentioned, the EU and UNESCO have an excellent partnership also in other countries. And in this project, in particular, the involvement of young people and local Yemeni civil society organizations are something that we really value. It's also important to keep in mind that the achievements of this project in terms of both job creation and cultural heritage restoration have been achieved in a very, very challenging context. So many thanks to the project staff for all your efforts and determination in making that happen. And I'd also like to say thanks to the UNESCO communications team for putting together such excellent communications and media material about this project to help showcase the project's achievements. I think that's important, not just for this project, but also, like Sumaya said earlier, we want to contribute to shifting the narrative about Yemen, and highlighting the achievements of this project can help show not only the rich cultural heritage of Yemen, but also send a positive signal that it's possible to achieve progress towards sustainable development with an intervention like this in Yemen at the moment. The second objective to learn from the project and plan for the future, I think we've heard a lot of interesting interventions over the last couple of days. Anna also highlighted some of the issues we need to work more on, examine more closely the links between peace building, social cohesion, and cultural heritage, and in particular how we can incorporate a do no harm approach and be conflict sensitive when working on something as sensitive as cultural heritage. Also, of course, we need to strengthen women's involvement going forward. So all good ideas about how that can be achieved are very welcome. And another key issue, I think, that's been highlighted very much by our SFD colleagues is the importance of integrating this project into other actions to make sure that cash for work does not exist on its own, but is linked to longer term sustainable employment opportunities, for example, through microfinance. And from the European Union side, we are stepping up our support in the economic sector in Yemen and to the private sector. So we would also be keen to see how we can better link up our other actions in Yemen to this project. So many thanks to all of you for these 2 days. And most of all, of course, thank you to all the project staff, the young people, the master craftspeople, civil society organizations, and cultural practitioners who have engaged in this project and helped make it a success so far. And we hope that you will stay engaged and that we will continue this discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Hedstrom. Before we depart, I would like to remind you that the project team remains available if you have any question about the project. The team has shared in the chat links where you can learn more about what's happening, and our emails and contact information are available there. So we want to we're committed to be as transparent and as available as possible to the people we serve in Yemen, and also anyone who's interested in the project. Our partners in SFD have a very rigorous complaint system. So please, for people in Yemen, we welcome all your recommendations and complaints and anything you have to say about the project. UNESCO is part of reviewing such information. All of the materials in terms of videos that you saw and you enjoyed, they're available online. So please follow us on our social media platforms. I'd like to thank you from my side for surviving with us in the 2 days. Everyone in their capacities. I'd like to thank Ambassador Jumaih for staying with us until the end, and for all of his efforts in the project behind the scenes, supporting us from the Yemeni government side. Thank you all, and I hope that you enjoyed being with us, and until we see you again in a better event, bigger event, and hopefully in-person event. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you
so much.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, everyone. Congratulations.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, everyone.